This is what old money looks like in Canada. The Thompson family of Canada commands a fortune of $73.7 billion, controlling everything from global financial data to national newspapers. But in America, we're talking about dynasties that have shaped entire industries for over a century. The Waltons alone are worth over $250 billion, making them richer than most countries' entire GDP. Today, we're diving deep into the ultimate wealth showdown, America's richest old money families versus Canada's wealthiest dynasties. And trust me, the differences in how these fortunes were built, maintained, and wielded will completely change how you see North American wealth. While both countries share a border, their approaches to building generational wealth couldn't be more different. Canadian dynasties tend to be quieter, more concentrated in specific regions, building empires through patience and strategic monopolies. American dynasties? They're louder, more aggressive, and they've literally rewritten the rules of global capitalism. Let's start with Canada's undisputed champions of old money. The Thompson family sits at the absolute pinnacle with $73.7 billion. This isn't just wealth, it's an empire that fundamentally shapes how information flows through the global economy. The dynasty was founded by Roy Thompson, who started with a single radio station in North Bay, Ontario in the 1930s. From that humble beginning, he built a media empire that would eventually transform into something far more powerful. Roy Thompson had a simple strategy: buy small, struggling newspapers and run them with ruthless efficiency. By the 1950s, he owned a vast network across Canada and the UK. His success was so immense that in 1964, he was granted a hereditary British peerage, becoming Roy Thompson, 1st Baron Thompson of Fleet. But the real genius move came from his son, Kenneth, who shifted the family's focus from declining newspapers to specialized information and financial data. The 2008 acquisition of Reuters created Thomson Reuters, a global information powerhouse that provides the high-stakes financial and legal data the entire global economy depends on. Today, under David Thompson, the 3rd Baron Thompson of Fleet, the family maintains iron control through their holding company, Woodbridge. They own the Globe and Mail, Canada's most influential newspaper, hold a major stake in Bell Canada, and David co-owns the NHL's Winnipeg Jets. The Thompsons don't need flashy displays of wealth. They own the information itself. Now let's look at America's answer to information control. While the Thompsons dominate data, America has the Mars family, worth $126 billion, who literally control what the world eats. The story began in 1911 when Franklin Mars and his second wife started a candy business. After initial failure during World War I, they came back stronger. And today, Mars Incorporated is a behemoth that goes far beyond candy. The Mars family owns Snickers, Twix, M&M's, but also massive pet care brands, and they control over 70% of wine sold in Europe. In the last year alone, they earned over $16 billion from wine sales. They own multiple vineyards in Italy, France, South America, South Africa, and Australia. The family even supplies wine to the Vatican for free. What makes the Mars family particularly American in their approach is their aggressive diversification. While Canadian families often stick to their core competencies, the Mars family expanded into seemingly unrelated industries, using their candy profits to build an empire that touches every aspect of daily life. Back in Canada, the Irving family of New Brunswick represents a different kind of power. Regional domination so complete they're often called modern-day feudal lords. The Irving Empire, built by K.C. Irving starting in 1899, is a massive web of companies touching every part of Atlantic Canada's economy. The family's holdings were split among K.C.'s 3 sons. Arthur Irving controls Irving Oil, with Canada's largest refinery, and over 900 gas stations. James J.K. Irving controls J.D. Irving Limited, involved in forestry, paper products, shipbuilding, transportation, and food. Until recently, a third branch controlled almost all of New Brunswick's major English-language newspapers. The Irvings are New Brunswick's largest private sector employer and one of the biggest landowners in the region. Their influence is so pervasive that critics say you can't live in New Brunswick without somehow contributing to Irving wealth. This concentration of power in one region is uniquely Canadian. American dynasties rarely achieve such complete regional control. Compare this to America's Walton family, worth over $250 billion. Sam Walton founded Walmart in 1962 in the small town of Florenceville, Arkansas. But unlike the Irving's regional focus, the Waltons went national, then global. Today, Walmart operates over 11,000 stores in 27 countries. The Waltons' approach to wealth is distinctly American: scale over exclusivity. While the Irvings control New Brunswick, the Waltons influence global supply chains. Their decisions about what products to stock can make or break entire industries. They've fundamentally changed how Americans shop, work, and live. The contrast is striking. Canadian old money like the Irvings builds deep, concentrated power in specific regions. American old money like the Waltons builds broad, distributed power across entire continents. Let's examine another fascinating comparison: Canada's Weston family, with their retail and bakery empire, versus America's Koch family and their industrial conglomerate. The Westons control Loblaw companies, Canada's largest food retailer, and until recently owned luxury department stores like Holt Renfrew and Selfridges in the UK. The dynasty started in 1882 when George Weston bought a bread route in Toronto. His son, W. Garfield Weston, took the business global, but it was the third generation, led by W. Galen Weston, who transformed Loblaw into Canada's grocery king through innovative store brands like President's Choice and No Name. The Westons represent Canadian business at its most traditional: steady growth, conservative expansion, and deep integration into daily Canadian life. You literally cannot grocery shop in Canada without enriching the Westons. Meanwhile, America's Koch family, worth over $68 billion, took a completely different path. Koch Industries is the largest privately owned company in America, spanning energy, manufacturing, and chemicals. But what makes the Kochs distinctly American is their use of wealth to reshape politics. Charles and David Koch invested over $1.5 billion in Republican politics over the past decade, fundamentally changing American political discourse. They've funded think tanks, universities, and political action committees, using their fortune to advance libertarian ideals and oppose climate change legislation. This aggressive political involvement is rare among Canadian dynasties. While Canadian old money certainly has political influence, they exercise it quietly through personal relationships and strategic donations. The Kochs broadcast their influence, turning wealth into a tool for ideological transformation. The Desmarais family of Montreal offers another Canadian perspective. Paul Desmarais Sr. built Power Corporation of Canada into a massive financial services conglomerate. The family controls some of Canada's biggest financial institutions, including Great-West Life Company and IGM Financial, and recently became major players in fintech through Wealthsimple. What sets the Desmarais family apart is their deep political connections. Paul Desmarais Sr. was a close friend and advisor to numerous Canadian prime ministers, including Pierre Trudeau, Brian Mulroney, and Paul Martin. His son André is married to former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien's daughter. These relationships place the family at the center of Canadian public life. But even the Desmarais family's political influence pales compared to American dynasties like the Rothschilds' American branch. While the European Rothschilds are more famous, the American branch has quietly amassed enormous influence. With a family fortune of $400 billion globally, they own shares in almost every profitable business worldwide. The Rothschilds own several of the biggest mining operations globally, including Glencore Mining Company worth $127.5 billion, Rio Tinto Mining worth $103 billion, and Agora Oil and Gas worth $1.4 billion. They own RIT Capital Partners worth $7.7 billion, and La Champagne Financière estimated at $121 billion. Their art collection alone is worth over $2 billion, and they own about $25 billion worth of real estate worldwide. The American Rothschilds represent old money at its most mysterious, wealth so vast and complex that its full extent remains unknown. Canada's Saputo family built their fortune more transparently. Starting in 1954, when Giuseppe Saputo arrived from Sicily with $500, they built a cheese empire that now spans the globe. Lino Saputo Jr. transformed the family business into one of the world's top 10 dairy processors. The Saputos represent the Canadian immigrant dream: steady growth, strategic acquisitions, and deep community roots. They're major philanthropists in Montreal, and their name graces the Saputo Stadium. With a net worth around $6 billion, they've achieved massive success while maintaining strong ties to their heritage. America's immigrant success stories operate on a different scale. Take the Pritzker family, worth over $35 billion. They built the Hyatt Hotel empire and diversified into hundreds of companies. But what makes them distinctly American is their approach to wealth distribution. The family famously fought a decade-long legal battle over their fortune, eventually splitting into 11 family lines, each worth billions. This kind of public family drama is rare in Canadian old money. The Bronfman family came close when they lost billions in failed entertainment ventures, but even their downfall was relatively quiet compared to American dynasty scandals. The Bronfmans built Seagram into the world's largest distiller during Prohibition, legally selling whiskey that was then smuggled into America. When Prohibition ended, Samuel Bronfman had huge stockpiles of aged whiskey, while American distillers were starting from scratch. Seagram quickly dominated North America, but the third generation made a catastrophic error. Edgar Jr. sold the profitable beverage empire to go all in on Hollywood, acquiring MCA and Universal. The entertainment ventures failed spectacularly, and the family lost billions. Today, they remain wealthy through diversified investments, but their empire is gone. Compare this to America's alcohol dynasty, the Bush family. Despite losing control of Anheuser-Busch in a hostile takeover, family members have launched new breweries and maintained their wealth through diverse investments. The American approach to dynasty failure is often to start over, louder and more aggressively than before. The Richardson family of Winnipeg represents Canadian prairie wealth. Starting in 1857 with James Richardson's grain trading business, they became pioneers in the Canadian grain industry, building elevator networks across the prairies and helping establish the Winnipeg Grain Exchange. Today, still privately owned and in its sixth generation, Richardson companies have interests in financial services, oil and gas, and real estate. They operate quietly, avoiding media attention while steadily growing their fortune. This is Canadian old money at its most traditional: patient, private, and powerful. America's agricultural dynasty, the Cargill-Macmillan family, worth over $47 billion, operates on a completely different scale. Cargill Incorporated is America's largest private company, controlling vast portions of global food supply chains. While the Richardsons focus on Canadian grain, Cargill influences what billions of people eat worldwide. The difference in scale reflects national ambitions. Canadian old money often seems content with national or regional influence. American old money demands global dominance. The McCain family, though based in New Brunswick, achieved global reach with frozen French fries. Brothers Harrison and Wallace McCain founded McCain Foods in 1957, perfecting the frozen French fry and becoming the world's largest producer. Their success came from identifying a simple product with universal appeal and executing flawlessly. But even McCain's global success feels modest compared to American food dynasties. The Kellogg family didn't just create breakfast cereal, they changed how the entire world eats breakfast. The Heinz family didn't just make ketchup, they created global condiment standards. Canada's Molson family has been brewing beer since 1786, making them one of North America's oldest business dynasties. John Molson wasn't just a brewer. He built steamships, funded hospitals, and owned Canada's first railway. The family has owned stakes in the Montreal Canadiens for generations, making them cultural custodians of Canada's most beloved sport. Yet even the Molsons' 200-plus-year history seems young compared to American dynasties like the DuPonts, who have been shaping American industry since 1802. The DuPonts didn't just build a chemical empire, they fundamentally transformed American manufacturing, creating products from gunpowder to nylon that changed how Americans lived and fought wars. The Patterson family story is uniquely Canadian. Jim Patterson, starting with a single car dealership in 1961, built Canada's second-largest privately owned company. The Jim Patterson Group spans food, media, automotive, and entertainment. Patterson owns Save-On Foods, dozens of radio stations, and even Ripley's Believe It or Not. At 96, Patterson still goes to work daily. His influence on Vancouver is monumental. He chaired Expo '86, which put the city on the global map. His $75 million donation to St. Paul's Hospital was the largest by a private citizen to a single medical facility in Canadian history. Patterson represents Canadian wealth at its most civic-minded. His fortune was built in Canada, managed from Canada, and constantly reinvested in Canada. This deep local commitment is a hallmark of Canadian old money. American equivalents like Warren Buffett operate differently. While Buffett is famously charitable, his Berkshire Hathaway seeks value globally. Canadian tycoons often seem to prioritize building up Canada specifically, while American tycoons prioritize building wealth wherever opportunity exists. The fundamental difference between American and Canadian old money isn't just scale, it's philosophy. Canadian dynasties build deep roots in specific communities, industries, or regions. They value stability, discretion, and long-term thinking. Their wealth is often tied to Canada's natural resources, its protected industries, or its unique cultural institutions. American dynasties think globally from day one. They're more willing to destroy existing industries to create new ones. They use wealth as a tool for transformation, not just preservation. Where Canadian old money whispers, American old money shouts. The numbers tell the story. America's top 10 richest families control over $800 billion. Canada's top 10 control roughly $200 billion. But relative to population, Canadian wealth concentration is actually higher. Canada has fewer billionaires, but they control a larger percentage of national wealth. This concentration gives Canadian dynasties different kinds of power. The Thompsons can influence national discourse through the Globe and Mail. The Irvings can essentially run New Brunswick as a private fiefdom. The Westons can determine what millions of Canadians eat. American dynasties operate in a more competitive environment. No single family controls American grocery shopping like the Westons control Canadian. No American family dominates an entire state like the Irvings dominate New Brunswick. American wealth is vast but fragmented. Both models have created extraordinary fortunes. Both have shaped their nations profoundly. But they represent fundamentally different visions of what old money should be and do. Canadian old money builds institutions. American old money disrupts them. Canadian dynasties preserve. American dynasties transform. Canadian wealth whispers. American wealth roars. As we look at these incredible fortunes, the Thompsons' $73.7 billion information empire, the Waltons' $250 billion retail dominance, the Mars family's $126 billion consumer goods kingdom, the Irvings' total control of Atlantic Canada, we see two different versions of North American capitalism. Canada's version emphasizes stability, community, and gradual growth. America's version emphasizes disruption, competition, and explosive expansion. Both have created dynasties that will likely endure for generations. Both have fundamentally shaped how millions of people live, work, and consume. The question isn't which model is better. Both have created extraordinary wealth and influence. The question is, which model will prove more durable in a rapidly changing global economy? Will the patient, rooted approach of Canadian dynasties prove more sustainable? Or will the aggressive, transformative approach of American dynasties continue to dominate? What's certain is that these families, whether they're the quiet information barons like the Thompsons or the retail revolutionaries like the Waltons, will continue shaping North America's economic landscape for generations to come. Their decisions, made in boardrooms from Toronto to Arkansas, from Montreal to New York, affect millions of lives daily. These aren't just rich families. They're the architects of modern North American capitalism, the hidden hands that guide entire industries, the quiet powers that shape how we live, work, and consume. Understanding their stories isn't just about wealth. It's about understanding the fundamental forces that drive our economy. So here's what I want to know. Given everything we've covered about how Canadian old money builds deep regional power versus how American old money seeks global domination, which approach do you think creates more lasting generational wealth? The Canadian model of patient, concentrated power, or the American model of aggressive, distributed empire building? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this deep dive into North America's most powerful dynasties opened your eyes to how old money really operates on both sides of the border. Hit that like button and subscribe for more insider looks at how the 1% lives. Check out the videos suggested on your screen for more content that reveals the hidden world of extreme wealth.